Hey everyone, welcome to the channel for another Escape from Tarkov video, this time with a look at some short-barreled rifle builds for those raids where you're looking for the mobility of a submachine gun with the stopping power of a rifle. There's a lot of different short-barreled options in the game, but they're not all created equal, and honestly some of them just plain suck, like the HK416 and the SA58, which have never really had a good shorty setup. For these builds, I picked out what I think are the top of the line setups for the short-barrel builds that pack the most punch into the smallest package, and actually end up being not only usable builds, but setups that can compete with the best of the meta. For this one, I'm going to show the builds in order of price, with the least expensive coming up first, so with that out of the way, let's get into it and start off with a tasteful little AK-104 setup. First up, we have the AK-104, which I think is easily the best of the short AKs, coming in with a solid price on the flea market of around 30,000 rubles, and retaining almost all of the good things about the full-length AK-103. Unlike the AK-102 and AK-105, this one doesn't lose any fire rate on the short version, so overall it's less of a downgrade compared to the other short AKs. This exact build will work on the 105 and the 102, but for this video I'm focusing on the AK-104. First up, you want to add the JMAC RRD-4C compensator as the muzzle device for maximum recoil control. Next, for the handguard, I've got the Zenit B30 handguard, which is one of the only handguards that actually works with the next item on the build, the Zenit B33 dust cover. When you combine these two together, you end up with the maximum recoil reduction possible for the short AKs, and you have a sight mount and 4 rails on the handguard to use for attachments. Next, I add an RK1 foregrip to bring the recoil down even farther, and a tactical device like the X400 flashlight or whatever you prefer for this section. For the sight, I tend to run hollow sights on most of my close range builds, but whatever you prefer here is fine. Next up, you want the Zenit PT lock adapter for the AK100 series, and then the Zenit PT3 Classica stock, which is the best in slot for these AKs. Finally, the last parts on this build include the Scorpius pistol grip and an RP1 charging handle, both of which give a nice boost to ergonomics. When this is all put together, you end up with 66 recoil and 62 ergonomics, even with the big 50 rounder equipped, for a total price of around 165,000 rubles. This setup is not too far off from the full-sized AK-103 in stats. The price is pretty good, and the small size works very well with the powerful 7.62 BP ammo in close range fights. Next in this video, we have the SIG MCX, which basically only has the option for short-barreled builds, since the longest barrel for this gun is about the same length as the shortest M4 barrel. You can find this one on the market for around 60,000 rubles with the good barrel and most of the main pieces. The MCX really walks the line between a rifle and an SMG, giving you some high damage and pretty great armor pen with a very nice fire rate, but somewhat high recoil because it's a pretty powerful round going through a fairly small gun. The MCX is one of my personal favorites for fighting in places like the Shoreline Resort because it combines the high fire rate of an M4 with the raw stopping power of a 7.62 AK, making it really quite good for battling in small rooms in the resort. This build is definitely the most simple to put together in the video, so let's get right into it. First up, you want to make sure your MCX has the 229mm barrel attached for the best overall stats. For the muzzle device, you're going to be using the 3-piece SIG SRD combo. This starts with the taper lock muzzle adapter and the SIG 2-port muzzle brake. These two parts are sometimes already attached to the MCX when you buy it, but if they've been removed, you can get both of them from the traders. Next, you want the SIG SRD QD suppressor, which is the best muzzle device for the MCX right now. Next, you're going to replace the handguard with the 12-inch MCX handguard, and then you need a pair of CASV key mod rails to attach things to the handguard. For the best overall stats, you can use the Hera CQR grip, though other options will work fine here as well, and then a tactical device of your choice onto the other rail. Finally, the last addition of the build are the Graal S pistol grip for ergonomics, and then a sight of some kind. When this setup is all put together, it ends up with 57 recoil and around 31 ergonomics with a 60 round mag equipped, for around 200,000 rubles total. Sadly, the ergonomics is a bit low for a short build, but what the MCX lacks in base stats, it more than makes up for in raw damage per second when the rounds connect. For the third build, we'll be taking a look at the MK47 Mutant, which is very much the flavor of the month during this wipe, and is something you're basically going to be playing against in every single raid that you load into. Most of the time, it's being run with the full-length barrel in the absolute lowest recoil configuration, but it also has a really solid short barrel build that's quite fun to use, and it wrecks in PvP just as much as the full-length option. The MK47 has a pretty high base price of over 100,000 rubles, but this is another fairly simple build since you only need to replace a few parts. First up, we're starting with the Lantac blast mitigation device combo. This needs the A3 adapter, which fits the blast mitigation device, and then finally the Lantac Dragon compensator, which attaches onto this as well, giving you the max recoil reduction possible for a muzzle device. You can also replace this with the SIG suppressor from the MCX build, or you can go with the Thunderbeast 762 suppressor, but both of these options are a lot more expensive and they offer less recoil reduction. Next, you need some M-lock rails for the default handguard, and then I use the RK1 foregrip plus a tactical device like the X400 flashlight. At the back end, you want to swap the buffer tube over to the SI advanced buffer tube for some extra base stats, and then I use the MOE carbine stock and a rubber butt pad as the best overall choice on any build that can use them. Finally, you can swap the pistol grip over to the Graal S for a big ergo boost, and then pick a sight to use on the build. The MK47 should also come with some MBUS iron sights for a free ergonomics boost as well. When this build's all put together, you wind up with 56 recoil and about 71 ergonomics, which gives it the best overall ergo of these builds, so it has some pretty snappy aiming and a good reload speed. For the total price, you're looking at around 240,000 rubles, or anywhere up to 300,000 and above if you go with one of the more expensive suppressors. Finally, to end the video, we have both the most expensive short barrel build on the list, but also my favorite of the bunch, and one of my favorite setups overall, the Shorty M4A1 running the SAI quad rail and the new Saker suppressor. Not much really needs to be said about the M4. It's a really good gun and definitely a classic meta build. In the current patch, it's been updated to work exceptionally well with short barrels, reaching almost the same low recoil that it can with the longer barrels. For this one, I'm building it from the ground up, starting with the stripped down M4A1 that you can purchase from Mechanic Level 2 for about 20,000 rubles. To flesh out the base of the build, you're going to need the following parts: a VLTOR MUR-1S receiver, the 260mm AR-15 barrel, the JP Gas System 5B, an SI advanced buffer tube, and the Raptor charging handle. With these parts attached, we have the maximum base stats for the build, and now you can add all the rest. Starting from the front, I'm using the Silencer Co. ASR muzzle device and the Saker 556 suppressor, which have the top recoil stats when combined for 556 weapons. Next up is the SAI quad rail 10-inch handguard, which just needs one M-lock rail to attach a foregrip, but it has side rails already for other attachments. On this setup, I'm using the shift grip for extra ergonomics on the build, and then attach your preferred tactical device. Next up, I go for the MOE carbine stock and the rubber butt pad again, and then also I add the Graal S pistol grip for the maximum ergonomics. Finally, you need to pick a sight, and then I also add some MBUS iron sights as a final piece for another small ergonomics boost. When this one's all put together, you end up with 38 recoil and about 54 ergonomics with a 60 round mag equipped, for an overall cost of around 320,000 rubles, which most definitely hurts the wallet a little bit whenever you lose one of these. However, I think this build is worth it if you have the cash to afford it on the regular, and it's honestly one of my current favorite builds for the M4 and Tarkov right now. Well, that pretty much covers my picks for the top short-barreled rifle builds in Tarkov. It's a shame that really cool setups like the short SA58 and the 10.5-inch 416 aren't really worth using, but we can always hold out hope that the lesser used builds will get a nice buff sometime in the future. These are kind of niche setups geared towards more aggressive players who like a nice light short weapon for pushing corners, but hopefully the video is useful to anyone watching and maybe give some ideas for your own builds. In any case, I hope you enjoyed, and let me know what you think down in the comments. Thanks for checking out the video. I've got links to my Twitch stream, Discord server, and Patreon page down below for anyone interested. And until next time, stay safe in Tarkov City.